office building. And we're very proud of that, and it speaks to staff engagement at the station. A little on the plant side, get ahead of myself, a little bit on the plant side. Plant reliability, equipment reliability as measured by the Equipment Reliability Index is on par with Darlington. And in turn, our operational performance. An example being Unit 4, one of our older units, as some critics like to say, is over 500 days of continuous operation and still counting. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Unit 1, our oldest reactor that clocked up 622 days continuous, and Unit 5, 632 days. And this is a result of investments that we've made and we continue to make to improve safety and reliability. And much has been made about safety and the reliability, and I wanted to put a little bit of that in perspective. We've made these investments, and from a probabilistic safety assessment perspective, Units 1 and 2, as a result of modifications, on par with new build requirements. Another factor in our improving reliability and, of course, generation is our robust maintenance program and our focus on planned maintenance outages. Last year at Pickering, we experienced the best planned maintenance outages from a safety, quality, schedule, and budget perspective in the history of the site. This in turn translates into generation, in turn revenue, which all translates into value for the ratepayer. Pickering last year in terms of generation was the 23.6 terawatt hours. That's the most that the Pickering station has ever put out as a 6-unit plant. 1.5 terawatt hours above target. And again, it speaks to the improved equipment reliability and as well the engagement of our staff. And in fact, over the last 3 years, Pickering has exceeded generation targets. And what are others saying about us? I'll start with WANO, World Association of Nuclear Operators. We recently completed a peer audit where we are rated among the top nuclear plants in the world. They also made mention of how Pickering Nuclear is amongst the leaders in the industry driving innovation and leveraging technology to improve efficiencies and drive performance. The Nuclear Safety Commission, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission here in Canada, the CNSC, commented that we've fulfilled our operating responsibilities and we promote a healthy safety culture. In our backyard, the Community Advisory Council last year wrote a letter to all staff at Pickering thanking them for the improved performance of the station. We received a Business Excellence Award from the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade, and I know I speak for all staff. We are particularly proud to receive a City of Pickering Civic Award right here at our host community in these very chambers. We're proud of all these things, and it's not just about plant performance. I wanted to talk a little bit about our social license. We know that it's important that our facility, we earn that right to operate our facility in your community. And to touch on a few topics and a few pieces here, I thought I would go on and talk about, we supported 100 community partnerships and sponsorships last year, like the food bank, the library, children's education programs, tree planting, house league sports teams, and that's just naming a few. And you might be interested to know that we supported, through our free programs, provided access to more than 5,000 community members last year. And I'm very proud of staff to be able to say here that we had a record-breaking charity campaign in 2019, just shy of $120,000 that we donated to Grandview Kids, the Legion, Autism Canada, and the local school breakfast programs, just again to name a few. And this is money that came out of our employees' pockets because they believe in supporting the community. As well, another item I'd like to mention, here and make known to all that we hosted the first in OPG history Canadian swearing-in ceremony for 60 new Canadians from 19 countries. And we've been recognized as the place to benchmark for diversity and inclusion. And it doesn't end there. Cobalt-60. Many of you are familiar with this radioisotope, its uses to sterilize medical equipment and disinfect implants. I would dare say if you've been to the doctor, the hospital, you've been touched by cobalt-60, and I would dare say you've probably been impacted by Pickering Nuclear, as we provide about 40% of the world's need. And if you'll allow me, I would like to share a very, very short video clip for your interest here.
Mr. Lockwood, you've got just over a minute left, so.
I'll have a motion to extend for 5 minutes. Your worship.
Understand?
I'm sorry, I've got a motion from Councillor McLean for a 5-minute extension. Seconded by Councillor Cumming. On the extension, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel safe to say I think we can all be proud of that. I've said many times Pickering Nuclear is a lot more than just making electricity. We're also about promoting the city of Pickering and supporting the local community. In essence of time, I'll move on, but I'm sure there'll be questions that come back to this. On top left, Darlington Station, keys here to make the council aware of is Unit 3 will begin refurbishments in the spring of this year, and our focus as a company is return Darlington Unit 2. The new build site, a picture of that in the center, and I'm certain there'll be questions about and follow up to Professor Ottmeyer's presentation. And I've included a dry fuel storage container in the bottom right that we can reference if when we're discussing waste and decommissioning. I'll move ahead in the essence again of time and talk a little bit about our decommissioning program. Our current preliminary decommissioning plan approved by the regulator, the CNSC, along with it, the financial guarantee. I make mention that this is available on the opg.com website, the entire preliminary decommissioning plan. We've talked about this at open houses. We've talked about this in the repurposing study in 2017, and we talked about this in the public in 2018 as part of our licensing hearing. It's written based on, the preliminary decommissioning plan is written based on current science, best practices in the industry. It includes schedules and, of course, key assumptions. And this, in turn, informs the financial guarantee, and that part is important. Made mention of earlier is the IAEA document and the General Safety Requirements Section 6. It's important to note at the beginning of that document and that section, it in bold letters says your decommissioning plan strategy has to be in line with a national policy on radioactive waste. And while OPG has chosen the deferred decommissioning path, it's important to note that decommissioning activities will begin immediately after the end of commercial operation and immediately after the shutdown of the first unit, beginning with placing that unit in storage. And our current plans are shut down Unit 1 in September of 2024 and Unit 4 December of 2024, and undergoing how to stagger down or when best to stagger down the units 5 to 8. When you take a look back at decommissioning, I've put these phases up here, and I'm sure there'll be questions about that around safe storage period, moving of fuel to dry fuel storage, and then removing the fuel from site. So a couple of comments on each. We predict that to move the fuel from the reactors to dry fuel storage will take approximately 3 years. Okay? And as well, there's a key piece here is to move the fuel from the irradiated fuel base to dry fuel storage will take a period of approximately 10 to 13 years. Present analysis shows it would require about 10 years cooling in the spent fuel bay. I would like to comment on a few concerns that I've heard and what I believe to be creating false expectations for the community. And these center around claims that the plant will be dismantled by 2034. I've just outlined to you that we predict it would take at least 10 years to move the fuel from the irradiated fuel bay out to dry fuel storage. Also, claims that the USA is currently dismantling plants in a period of 10 years, you need to look closer at. The plants referenced and being circulated, one is a prototype reactor that actually never ran. Another was an experimental reactor that only ran for 4 years. These are all single unit plants, not extensive containment systems, and some of them have been shut down for over 12 years. I would point out to the community that you do have access to already 140 acres at Alex Robertson Park and Kinsman Park and the waterfront trail and the wetlands on Hydro Marsh. Financial guarantees, I think, is important. I'll end there, Mayor. I can see you giving me the hook, is that, our preliminary plan, and it's, of course, based on what we know now, that financial guarantee is tied to that. It's important. Its onus is on us to be responsible.
Mr. Lockwood, I have to ask you to wrap up.
All right. Okay. I will wrap up with a final thought, and it's this: the entire 4,500 employees, either directly or indirectly associated with Pickering Nuclear throughout the region, and many live in the city of Pickering. They support one mission, and that mission at Pickering is to improve performance year over year, such that our last day of commercial operation is our best day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We do have questions. Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Lockwood, for your presentation. You answered one question. Out of the 600 acres, 140 are presently in use by our community, such as Alex Robinson Park and the baseball diamond and all that.
Correct.
And we've heard from some residents today or some people about the immediate shutdown. What is immediate? Could you define that?
All right. I think what they were referring to, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, was immediate dismantling the plant. Okay? And you have to look careful at, they make reference to the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency document that says that generally the preferred dismantling of the plant is on an immediate basis. But that's based on a number of factors. The end solution in that for that nation's in terms of radioactive waste, as well as the radioactive conditions of the site, which in turn translates to technology, and as well financial impact as well, and a series of other conditions, which we have studied and chosen at this time, based on our knowledge, the best way to go is deferred decommissioning, which in turn means deferred dismantling of the plant. I'm not naive to the fact that technology will improve with time, and we're a learning organization. We're always about how do we improve, that several of those milestones will move forward. But again, it's important that we are required by the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission to have a plan in place and a financial guarantee that supports that. And that plan and that financial guarantee is renewed and reviewed every 5 years.
Okay. So as it is now with the 2024 and the dismantling would take, you're saying, a minimum of 10 years? So to 2034?
No. At this time, we could not commit to that, and I think that's false for the community, false expectation for the community to think that that's going to happen. It will take us 3 years to move the fuel out of the reactors onto the dry fuel storage containers. In parallel, we will move the fuel from the irradiated fuel bay to dry fuel storage containers about 13 years. So I'll recap. All right, we shut down the reactor, place it in a guaranteed shutdown state, never to be used again. We start defueling the reactor. We put it in a spent fuel bay, which I'm sure many of you have seen, similar to a large swimming pool. It needs to cool there, based on our current analysis, about 10 years. Okay? Then we need to move that fuel from the irradiated fuel bay to dry fuel storage containers. We predict that will take approximately 13 years from the time we shut down the plant. We are looking at whether we can move fuel from the fuel bay at a time period less than 10 years, but that analysis is currently still just ongoing. Okay?
So there's no regulations in effect right now to move these storage units to some other facility, is there?
Okay, the end solution, under the watch of the Nuclear Waste Management Organization, the end solution, the national policy here, is a deep geological repository scheduled for in-service dates around 2043, 2045. Okay? That part's important. Many make reference to that there's no progress being made there, but probably many of you as councillors are aware that it's down to the selection of 2 final host communities, with the final selection scheduled for around 2023, then a period to work its way through the design and construction, targeting for 2043.
Thank you. And sometimes I agree with one of the delegates here, my friend and neighbor, Mr. Sims, and sometimes I disagree. In the particular case of it, the Pickering nuclear plant being a stain on the city of Pickering, I have to disagree with that. The number of residents that I look after and my friends in this area are vast number of friends and people that work at Ontario Nuclear Plant. And so I'm proud to represent them, and knowing them, I know their dedication to safety and the plant. So I appreciate everything that nuclear plant has done for us in the city of Pickering. I appreciate your participation in community events. And I just have 2 more questions. We heard a lot about Quebec power being cheaper. Could you touch on that? Is it cheaper? Could we buy it there at a consistent price?
So,
are we on the hook?
Yes. So the question is simple. The answer a little bit complex, and willing to offer that because I think it is a good question, and there's a lot of confusion around that. A couple of key parts that I would make mention is that, and earlier I think it was brought up that we import power from Quebec currently, and we currently export power nominally in the wintertime to support their heating load. Okay? Another key aspect of that is the size and the amount of transmission lines, and our earlier speaker spoke about that it wouldn't cost very much money. And like I said, it's very important to note that we currently export and import power from Quebec, right? Why would we not? And currently at a price of about 2 cents. Okay? To make that firm that up as a firm commitment would require improvements to the transmission system. As I understand it, there's some problems up around the Ottawa area to firm up that we would always be getting this power. And with that, though, is I think it's safe to say, and the earlier speaker talked about, that price would be about 6 cents. So we would move from paying 2 cents for power, then we would move to 6 cents. Also, the earlier speaker talked about, well, we put in this massive transmission line to the tune of just that. We predict about $1.2 billion, all right? What wasn't mentioned there was the the advanced time and the time needed to construct those transmission lines, work your way through the environmental studies and communities, local communities and indigenous communities, which are currently estimated to be about 12 years.
Thank you. And you produce 40% of the cobalt-60. Where's the other 60% come from? And what effect is it going to have when Pickering shuts down? Is
Okay.
Darlington going to carry over? Or?
Yeah, that's a very good question because, as you know, Canada has been a world leader for many years in radioisotopes. We're proud that Pickering's produced cobalt-60 since the very first unit in 1971. Currently, what we're doing is looking at producing cobalt-60 at Darlington. Okay.
Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Pickles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the delegation. You would be familiar with, and I think you referred to, there's some American plants that we hear cited, Maine Yankee, Elk River, Shoreham, and a number of others. They may only have one reactor. They may not have been in service as long, but the decommissioning period for those we hear was 9, 10, in that range. You're saying at the Pickering reactor, given that we have 8 reactors at the station, given the nature of the reactor, you're saying it's not possible to decommission those in a period of time of a dozen years. Maybe you could just explain that? Why?
Yeah. So I think it's important that you have to look at specifics and not just a general painting it with a broad brush, right? So and when you look at each of the units specifically, what you'll find there that, like I said, some have never run, some have been shut down for 12 years before you started that, and it's not just decommissioning; it's this dismantlement piece of the plant, which I think you're getting at. And so that does factor into it, whether how long the plant's been running or how long it's been shut down, and if it only ran for a very short period. Only one element that I did make mention of is that's one unit versus 8 units at Pickering with a quite elaborate concrete containment system. So you would have to factor in many things there. The technology does come into play here in terms of what I was talking about at first. We have to get rid of our fuel. We have to cool our fuel in the spent fuel bay and then remove it to dry fuel storage containers. And to make that tie then for you is if a unit's been shut down for 10, 12 years before you start this, well, the fuel's already gone through its cooling period. Okay?
So the shutdown of Unit 8, the last unit that was shut down, assuming it's number 8, you're talking 2050, 2058? I'm not sure you gave a specific date.
Oh, yeah, sure. My mistake, we did not. Currently, we are licensed for Pickering, as mentioned earlier, all units to the end of 2024. Okay? What's been in the news is we propose that we stagger those shutdown dates with all units being shut down by the end of 2025. Okay.
Okay, but I was talking about the decommissioning. So you shut them down in 2025, and then you spoke to some phases of the decommissioning plan. I'm just saying at the last unit to shut down, the last unit to be decommissioned,
Okay, understand.
fully decommissioned would be Unit 8, and that would be 2050, 2058. Is that a correct time frame? That's 30, 40 years.
That's correct. And do not hide that fact. That's based on our preliminary decommissioning plan and in terms of our financial guarantee and based on what we know now, right?
So the concern I hear most often, and we'll talk about the motion when we get to it, is people are concerned, so they understand there's a time frame that some can be shut down, whether it's 9 or 10 years, and they understand we have more reactors. Maybe it would take 15 years, maybe it would take 20 years, I don't know. But when you're talking 2058, that just seems like a long ways away. And I think in your presentation, when you spoke of the processes, was there not a period of inactivity or very little that would occur in some of the, like, a couple decades where
Yes.
they would be deferred, they would sit there wouldn't be much going on? Maybe you could explain that.
Yeah, and I put it back up on the screen, the first 3 years about the fuel, and then get the fuel into this, and out of the spent fuel bay into dry fuel storage containers, and then get the dry fuel storage containers and the fuel off the site, 30 years, right? And then begin the dismantling and the demolition of the reactor buildings, right? And you're right, currently our current plans show that stretching out 40 years plus the last unit being shut down. So 40 years plus 2024, 2025. And again, I do acknowledge that that's based on technology as we know it now, right? And the assumptions that have gone into that based on what we know now. And I'm not naive to the fact that considerable advances in robotics and technology will advance some of those key milestones forward. But I think it's also important to note that dismantling and demolition of the plant by dates of 2034 are not possible in our estimates.
So, I mean, I can appreciate some of those timeframes that people are suggesting might be a little unrealistic, but through Councillor Brenner, he did provide us with a number of documents to read and whatnot. Didn't the International Atomic Energy Agency decommissioning report, didn't it suggest that deferral wasn't preferable, that immediate dismantling was more favorable? I don't know if you're familiar with that report.
Oh, very
whether
much
you can
so.
speak to it. Oh, okay.
Yes, and in fact, that I have it before me, and our strategy, of course, is based on that very document. And I would also say that this has come before this very issue has come before the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, and they have ruled on that. And for the public to see, it's in our detailed record of decision for the license, saying that we have looked at this very item. And if I may read it out, it in bold, because this part never gets mentioned. The licensee shall select a decommissioning strategy that will form the basis for planning for decommissioning. The strategy shall be consistent with the national policy on management of radioactive waste. And the other key part that does not get mentioned is that generally immediate dismantling is the preferred strategy. But it goes on to say there may be situations in which immediate dismantling is not practical strategy when all relevant factors are considered, and there's a page full of relevant factors. Okay?
One last question, Mr. Mayor, because I don't want to get into debate of the item, that can come later. But so of the 8 reactors, 6 are operating, 2 are shut down, and I believe that's units 2 and 3.
Correct.
So they're in guaranteed shutdown or layup
Yes.
or whatever.
Safe storage, yes.
So how safe storage? How long have they been in safe storage?
They've been there since basically 2005.
2005. So
Right? There's no fuel in them. There's no water in either units 2 and 3.
they've already been there for 15 years, shut down, not operating. The fuel you just said has been taken out of them.
Correct.
So would they not be candidates for immediate dismantling? Are they not? Like, how long? What else would you have to do before you could start actually taking that apart? Does it have to sit there for 2 decades, or could it start being dismantled right now?
It's a very good question, right? And it seems like a reasonable. I totally understand where you're coming from. But it's also important to remember that units 2 and 3 are in the middle between units 1 and 4, which are operating, and common services running between them, including the spent fuel bay. Right?
Okay. It's good to know that those units, though, are
Yes.
working through the phase process and the fuel's out of them, so I'm happy to hear that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Budd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, thank you for the presentation, Mr. Lockwood. How many thousands of kilowatt of electricity is generated from our Pickering plant? Or maybe also in terms of what percentage does it accommodate Ontario?
Sure. Our combined capacity of 6 units is 3,100 megawatts. Okay, that's what we can produce. That's on par with us supplying around 14% of the province's needs. Okay?
Now, obviously, when we decommission, most of our power will be transferred to either Bruce or Darlington. Am I right?
That's correct.
So,
Go ahead.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's correct. Remember the original rationale by our previous shareholder, the Liberal government, was for Pickering to provide clean, safe, reliable, low-cost power during the refurbishments of Bruce and Darlington.
So, we heard some people speak of in terms to doing immediate, dismantling. If that was to take place, can Bruce and Darlington can handle the workload?
Handle the workload? That's a very good question. As you know, that currently there is a shortage in this province of skilled trades, right? And so I would have to take that away, and because really what you're saying is refurbishment at Darlington, refurbishment at Bruce Power, plus the trades necessary to pull forward decommissioning or dismantlement, pending we come up with a technological way that we could actually do that. That's a very good question. I wouldn't have the answer for that. But I do know there's a shortage in Ontario.
Okay. Now, I also know that we have other countries that apparently operate CANDU reactors. I don't know how many countries, but I'm not sure of. Do you know of any of those countries have any accidents related to the CANDU reactors?
None that I'm aware of, but I'm not totally sure about Pakistan and India that have some hybrids of CANDU reactors. Okay, none that I'm aware of.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Brenner?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Lockwood, for the presentation and for taking the time for our telephone conference that provided me an opportunity to speak to you and hear from you some of your thoughts, and also for us to exchange information. I do want to ask you a few questions about tonight's presentation. You referred to, and I heard you say the word at least twice, they, in referring to, I can't remember if you used misleading or information, or alluded to they in the context of public misleading expectations. Who's the they? Since I'm the author of the notice of motion, am I the they that you're referring to?
No, and not at all. I just think from my perspective, and you heard some of it this evening, talking about that the plant would be dismantled in 2034, that this would supply 16,000 person years of work, that this could be funded, prompt or immediate dismantlement could be funded. I'm simply saying what I've heard and what I heard, and what concerns me there is false expectations, and we want to be as transparent as we can. That's why I point out to you that you can look up where the financial guarantee is. It's in public space, and the requirements to make changes if you want to allocate funding. Similarly, the entire preliminary decommissioning plan that I spoke to is available. The entire plan is available in detail on opg.com.
Thank you. That actually leads into my subsequent question, which is tied to both your presentation and my motion. You reference expectations and transparency. I want to ask you a little bit about the report that is Ontario Power Generation report from 2015, which was a transparent report, if I'm correct, involved a great deal of consultation, had a number of recommendations in terms of land use and repurposing and so forth. You're familiar with that document?
I am so.
I'd like to ask you about expectations. One of the options in planning zone results and rationale. It identifies with 8 green stars, which suggests really positive, and it talks about entailing film and indoor film studios on the property. And then it talks about film studios with large-scale sound stages, so on, great demand, and it talks about how it could work well on that property. Would you call that a false expectation or a reality?
Well, I guess what I would call that is when we reached out to the community, there was, I think, approximately, and if you just read it, something like 600 ideas put forth of what could be used for future use of the Pickering site. One of them was a film studio, as I recall. That was, it's important that we listen to all ideas. Whether I could comment on whether that's practical, I think you said, or something like that.
But you actually answered the question, and I'm not trying to debate you honestly, sir, and I appreciate the answer.
I was just going to say that I don't think I'm the guy that could comment on a film studio, right?
Subsequent, and I appreciate again your answer, you just stated in your response about this report reflects what you heard. It reflects what you heard from participation from 600 plus as part of that consultation. Would you concede that the operatives in my notice of motion are based on input, including input from talking to OPG, including input from your reports? Would you concede that the motion that's coming before council is strictly one of a business economics going forward into the future? Would you concede that it's based on information that we've just gathered, that the mover and seconder have gathered and put into our operative? Because I'm really only going to be talking about the operatives tonight, which are the now therefores. It's strictly information that we have gathered. It may not be information that's 100% accurate, but it's just feedback and information. Would that be a fair statement? And no less fair than your 2015 report, which is an excellent document.
All right, so you've said many things there. You know the way that I feel we value the community's input, and we welcome the 600 ideas. It came from those many forums to accumulate all those ideas and tabulate those in the report. A broad sector of the community was pulsed on that, right? As to where you've gathered the information for the motion, I don't know if I can really comment on that.
Fair answer.
Right? And all I really can comment on a little bit is the motion that I had seen previous from their last council meeting from December. That's all I could comment on. Right?
Fair enough, and I appreciate that. The other question that I want to talk about is in relationship, a combination of from that report and also from your presentation. There's 2 aspects that you touched upon this evening. One of them is the OPG plan for optimization and repurposing, and that deals with something that's not part of the motion here tonight, and that is whether you're going to cease commercial options in 2024, or if I understand, 2025. Is your optimization the end of commercial in 2025, which is 12 months different than in the report from 2015?
All right, that's a fair question. And it does give me the opportunity to talk about the other key media story from a couple of weeks ago. As most in the audience would be aware, a Toronto Star article that said they had a leaked document that said Cabinet had approved operations of Pickering to 2025. I believe that's what you're referring to.
Correct.
And I want to comment on that. Our idea is just optimize the shutdown. I want to jump ahead and say we are shutting the plant down. It's not, okay, we're coming back for another extension. This is about shutting down the plant. It's about optimizing that shutdown, staggering those units in an order to extract the value for the ratepayer, for the shareholder, and to lessen the impact for staff and the local communities. So yes, we intend to shut that plant down by no later than the end of 2025. That's what we proposed. Okay. There's two key factors here. We do not have final go-ahead from our shareholder, Province of Ontario. And the other key piece to this is we would have to appear before the CNSC in a license hearing, undoubtedly in the community of Pickering. Right?
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Excellent. Thank you very much. Final question is on the decommissioning plan, which was the other piece that I've alluded to. So when we remove the factor of whether it's end of 2024 or end of 2025, which is yet to be determined, the decommissioning plan, would it be fair to say that we're consistent that that moving forward a decommissioning plan with expediting a process that ensures safety, which we're all consistent, OPG's consistent, City of Pickering's consistent, and I'm sure all the residents are consistent. Would that be a fair assumption that the difference is really how long it's going to take versus a plan that meets, I think you said, the three criteria, which is end, shutdown, and then the decommissioning. And then it's the timelines that are yet to be determined. I'm trying to do it in simplistic, but would that be correct?
Well, I will comment, and you tell me if I'm answering your question. I have no problem with a redirect, right? I think it's important that we've laid out that plan and put in place the financial guarantee that supports that plan, and that stretches out until the site is completely released of regulation out to 40 years past the shutdown date. Okay? So optimization 2024, 2025 currently has not a big effect on releasing the site from all regulatory control. I think you would see what I mean from that. And I also conceded that dates as early as 10 years, that when we look at the technology, the science, best practice in the industry, to have that site down and released from all regulatory control in 10 years, not possible. I will say, though, that we are always looking at how we can pull forward that 2064 forward, okay? And then that also involves the science, best practices, et cetera, which are always exploring. And then that would also mean amendments to the financial guarantee to support an accelerated plan. Okay?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further questions? Being that Mr. Lockwood, I just have one, maybe two. First question is, you've stated, I believe, I just want to make sure I understand it, that your decommissioning proposal meets the guidelines of the International Atomic Energy Agency.
Absolutely, and that's been reviewed by both the CNSC staff and commission, and it's included in the detailed record of decision.
And just for clarity, the NWMO, Nuclear Waste Management Organization, is responsible for the ultimate disposition of the what's known as spent fuel, the fuel rods. And although that work is funded in part by OPG, it's actually an arm's length agency of the federal government. It is not an OPG agency. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Right. I think it's an important distinction. And thank you very much for being here this evening. And thank you, has already been stated, for what OPG has contributed to our community. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Our next and final delegation is Mr. Paul White from the Fairport Beach Neighborhood Association.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. It's good to be here tonight, and it's pretty hard to follow all the expert speakers with their knowledge and background of the subject matter. I'm in full support of the council motion tonight that's on the floor, and I'll give the following reasons. At the council meeting of December 16, 19, I spoke in support of the notice of motion regarding the early decommissioning. With the expertise available today in the nuclear fission business, there is no need to delay decommissioning. In the United States of America, there are companies starting up to address what is referred to as the growth industry of decommissioning nuclear plants. There's quite a few companies. These companies are scrambling as we speak to hire experts to address the growing need. The International Atomic Energy Commission, which several speakers have referred to, defines the 3 options for decommissioning: immediate dismantling, which has an acronym of DECON; safe enclosure, which talks about a 40 to 60 year span under the acronym of SAFSTAR, SAFESTAR; and entombment, which there are 3 plants around the world that are being entombed or have been entombed. These definitions have been internationally adopted, and we are fortunate enough to have one of their 4 world offices right here based in Toronto. Immediate dismantling allows for the facility to be removed from regulatory control relatively soon after shutdown. Final dismantling or decontamination activities can begin within a few months or years, depending on the facility. Following removal from regulatory control, the site is then available for reuse. Each approach has its benefits and disadvantages. In the case of nuclear reactors, about 99% of the radioactivity is associated with the fuel, which is removed following permanent shutdown. What is the decommissioning experience around the world? About 115 commercial power reactors, 48 experimental or prototype power reactors, as well as over 250 research reactors and fuel cell facilities have been retired from operation to date. At least 17 have been fully dismantled. Over 50 are being dismantled as we speak. Over 50 are in an immediate dismantling strategy, and 3 have been entombed. And for the others, the decommissioning strategy has not yet been specified. France has decommissioned 3. Great Britain has 29 that are being decommissioned, which began in 1992 on the first one. Spain has had 1, closed in 1990 under safe enclosure. Germany has 11 of 19 under immediate dismantling. Japan had 1 and started in 1998, and of course the one that was exposed to the tsunami. The USA has 10 using the SafeStar method and 20 mostly single unit plants using the early decommissioning. If this council is committed to the decon mode, dismantling, then the citizens of Pickering and the broader community will want to hear what OPG has to say, and I think we've heard some tonight, Queen's Park and Ottawa. When you start doing the research, there is just so much information. Any one subject's going to take you days and days to drill down on. I mentioned Ottawa because I noted that the Atomic Energy of Canada Limited developed the CANDU reactors technology starting in the 1950s, and in 2011 licensed this technology to CANDU Energy, a wholly owned subsidiary of SNC-Lavalin, for $15 million, including 15 years worth of royalties going forward. So 2011, 15 takes us to 2026. SNC-Lavalin Nuclear Inc., which is SNC's nuclear subsidiary, is already part of Team Can Do, a group of 5 companies that manufacture and refurbish the Can Do reactors. Many countries are considering the thorium nuclear reactors, which the Atomic Energy Commission Can Do reactors easily convert into. I just put that information out there as going forward in my comments. Under a technical document by the IAEA, which is a selection of decommissioning strategies, issues, and factors, the social impact and stakeholder involvement are stated quite clearly. During the planning stage of a decommissioning project, the concerns, issues, and views of the different stakeholders are taken into consideration. Environmental and social impacts play an essential role in the implementation of any large project. Therefore, to be successful, a decommissioning project needs to be open, transparent, and clear to all stakeholders. And I thank this council for starting that process early on. For each facility, a decision is made on what the preferred end state would be after decommissioning. Different interests, which we've heard, ranging from the owner, the municipality, to the affected neighbors, need to be taken into consideration. The deferred end state strategies could be to achieve a greenfield situation, which is unrestricted use, or taking the site to a brownfield situation, which is a reuse of an industrial facility as an example for new energy production. The different end states call for different decommissioning strategies, different discussions with stakeholders, and different regulations. I'll just get right to the end of it. The most important factor to gain public acceptance might be through a procedure whereby the proposals, discussions, dialogue, and decisions are brought forward in public meetings. An open and transparent process which involves all stakeholders at a very early stage of the decommissioning process is increasingly found to be essential. I just note that everything that I have stated tonight is in documents, and as we move forward to 2024, it'll be interesting to hear what the other levels of government have to say about the options of decommissioning. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions to the delegation? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Members of council, that moves us to correspondence. Item 6.1.
Move to receive for information 6.1.
I'm sorry?
Move to receive for information 6.1.
Not to endorse?
Well, we have already passed our own motion, and I'm not sure if it's
all right.
consistent
Move to
or
receive is
inconsistent.
the motion. It's seconded by Councillor Butt on the motion to receive. Discussion? No
No,
discussion?
voting.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. On the second item, which is the Changes to Development Charges Act, correspondence
motion
to
to
Minister
receive.
Clark. Receive for information, moved by
Yes.
Councillor Pickles, seconded by Councillor McLean. Discussion, being none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 6.3, which,
Recommendations, 1 and 2,
Second them.
not 3?
and 3.
Okay.
And 3. And 3.
Okay, this is the, okay, all right. This is the, regarding Envision Durham, the housing policy planning discussion paper. This is to receive it, to engage city staff in the process in the context of work that has already been approved by the Council of Pickering in the subject matter, and to appoint Councillor Brenner and Councillor Butt to work with city staff on the review. Further discussion? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Move the planning report.
Planning report, both items. Moved by Councillor Pickles, seconded by Councillor Butt. Items to be pulled? Being none on the report, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. New and unfinished business.
Move 8.1.
8.1 being the Enabling Change Program, City of Pickering Accessibility Advisory Committee
Second
Service
it.
Support Animal Task Group. This is moved by Councillor Brenner, seconded by Councillor McLean. Discussion? Councillor Brenner?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just want to point out that our staff have done an amazing job in this under the leadership of the Accessibility Advisory Committee and our staff representative. The fact is, for the province of Ontario to recognize the work that this council had moved forward on in 2018, and our staff and the advisory committee now moving forward so much that the government is actually prepared to fund a project which will enable the government of Ontario to have guidelines for service animals, therapy dogs, support animals, and the list goes on. And when you think of that it started by the intelligence and the expertise of an advisory committee that brings to the table the kind of representation that they have brought to the table is just amazing. And I do want to express my gratitude. I know both myself and Councillor Cumming have been attending those meetings, and this type of opportunity for $50,000+ will certainly make a big difference, not just here in Pickering, but right across Ontario when the report is done. And I think the timelines, actually, I read the timelines in the report, and they're very aggressive, and they're fantastic. And I think that knowing the talent on that committee, they're up to the task. And I certainly know my own little dog, who has been part of that process, Bay, have to throw that in because she's now got a pink vest for being a therapy dog in training and documenting that process. Got a great team, including my dog.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Any further discussion? Being none on the motion, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 8.2 for
Move it.
budget approval. Moved by, I'm sorry, who moved that? Councillor Pickles, seconded by Councillor Cumming. This is the purchase of land from Metrolinx. Discussion? Being none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
Your Worship, I'd like to change the agenda to bring forward Councillor Ash's and Councillor Brenna's motion.
Well, there's only one in front of it, so if you don't mind.
Still, there's a lot of people waiting, I think, Your Worship.
I don't think this one's going to take very long,
Okay.
Councillor. Thank you.
You're the boss.
Okay. So we're on. You're the boss. Can I get a note for home?
You can get a notice to motion to dispense with the reading.
The notice of motion is to deal with the textile diversion strategy moved by Councillor Brennan and Pickles, whereas the City of Pickering's approach.
To dispense the reading.
Motion to dispense by Councillor Brenner, second by Councillor Pickles. On motion to dispense, all in favor? That's carried. We heard the presentation from the Diabetes Association this evening. This is essentially the motion in support of the City of Pickering participating in the program. Discussion. Councillor
Just
Brenner?
very brief. I mean, there's very little to add from the presentation, but to point out, to save anyone from asking the question, that this motion and the information was dialogued with our staff, city staff, planning development staff, sustainability staff, and they are all comfortable with what has been presented this evening. It fits into the City of Pickering vision, and it certainly fits in nicely into the work plan that is being generated by sustainability and planning and development. So I'm asking all members of council to support it, and we can ask for I'll ask for a recorded vote, but I think it's self-explanatory.
Thank you. Councillor Pickles?
And just briefly, Mr. Mayor, I think this is really a win-win situation. We received a very professional presentation from the proponents of this. We got a very good reference from the City of Oshawa. We're looking at the diversion of materials that would otherwise go to landfill. Those materials that can be sold go to a charity, Diabetes Canada, and we have an opportunity to address concerns we have with problems at existing bins and not being picked up and clutter. So win-win-win all around, and please bring this forward and support it.
No further discussion. Recorded vote requested by Councillor Brenner.
Councillor Brenner.
Yes?
Councillor Butt.
Yes.
Councillor Cumming.
Yes.
Councillor McLean.
Yes?
Councillor Pickles.
Yes.
Councillor Ash.
Yes.
Mayor Ryan.
Yes.
Your Worship, that vote carries unanimous.
Thank you. That brings us to item 9.2, a motion moved by Councillor Brenner, seconded by Councillor Ash regarding the decommissioning of Pickering Nuclear Generating Station.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarity, because less is best, I am moving the the replacement, which is the operatives without any narrative, and with some of the friendly amendments that were discussed in our last meeting, which is reflected in the supplement that is before us this evening.
So with the approval of the seconder, we have the substitute motion moved by Councillor Brenner, seconded by Councillor Ash, that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Pickering supports the commencement of decommissioning process and dismantling of PNGS as expeditiously as possible, in line with the recommendations of the International Atomic Energy Agency, decommissioning of nuclear power plants, research reactors, and other nuclear fuel cycle facilities, directs the City of Pickering Economic Development and Public Affairs staff through the CAO to commence work with OPG and other partners on creating and promoting Pickering as a center of excellence for the decommissioning of the Pickering Nuclear Generating Station, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Ontario Minister of Energy, all Durham Region municipalities, all Durham Region MPPs and MPs, and the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. Discussion. Councillor Brenner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First off, I want to preface to make it very, very clear that this notice of motion, when it was written, this notice of motion as presented this evening, is about economics. The economics and the importance of building a capacity in the City of Pickering to go forward into the future based on a center of excellence, and to build on the decommissioning process and the ceasing of the commercial sales of electricity by OPG. In doing that, I want to read a little bit of a statement to show you that it's very consistent with the vision. The statement reads, although standard commercial land use generally would be challenging to implement prior to the end of decommissioning, this study has shown that there are many land use options that would likely be suitable and create synergies with existing structures and other assets. Given the wide range of options, it can be assumed that there is more than one promising path forward for the Pickering site once commercial operations has ceased. That is a quote from 2015, Ontario Power Generation, in the report that they created, which is the repurposement preliminary assessment that was referred to in the question period earlier, that involved a strong representation of approximately, I think I heard, 600 participants in the consultation process. Why is that important? Because the operative motions this evening is strictly building on moving forward with a vision, and a vision that enables the City of Pickering to continue on the path of economic gain, prosperity, with some assumptions. Those assumptions are, when we talk about the decommissioning process and dismantling as expediently as possible, at no time was Councillor Ash or myself naive enough to believe that a wrecking ball is coming in 2015, or I'm sorry, in 2025, or so on. It's with the knowledge and understanding that the dismantling process that we refer to is a process that would be consistently safe and one that would be approved by the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission based on all available information. The operatives tonight is saying that there's a lot of information, as we heard when this was deferred, thousands of pages of documents. And I want to thank my colleagues because they really did read it, because we had all kinds of discussions offline, online, exchanging information. And I also want to say thank you to OPG. We spent 2.5 hours Saturday talking about the motion, talking about their reports, and the reports that I would be referencing tonight. In doing so, what we're really talking about is that there's a difference of opinion, and I think we heard it from all the delegations and we heard it from questions, is what that decommissioning process is going to look like. How long will that take? Clearly, no member of council, myself included, has the expertise to know what that can be. What we do know is that we expect that the regulator that will be hearing this, being the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, will make a decision based on information, transparency, public involvement from the residents of Pickering and abroad outside of the residents of Pickering, and drawing from the same reports that we drew on when we drew up the motion. There was a correction that had to be made in the operatives, and that in the original operative, I referred only, and I didn't refer properly to the name of that study, which was the study by the International Atomic Energy Agency. So I've included the name of that study versus referencing to a paragraph. Why was it important to include the full name? Because that talks not just about the decommissioning, but it also talks about the nuclear fuel cycle facilities, because as everyone knows, our plant is much more than just generating. There's also the storage. And no one believes for a moment that upon the end of commercial sale, whether it's the end of December 31st, 2024 or December 31st, 2025, that means that all of a sudden the contamination and the radioactive would suddenly disappear. Long process. But that process has got to be based on a common understanding that I'm hoping, if this passes this evening, that we expect it to be done expediently and safely. That meets the needs of, and we heard from OPG when they talk about their shareholders. Well, this council talks about our shareholders, which are the people of Pickering, Durham Region, Ontario, but it starts with our primary shareholder, and that are the citizens of Pickering. So when we put this motion forward, it was keeping in mind what we are hearing, keeping in mind that there's a lot out there, and keeping in mind that no member of this council is a scientist, and I have all the respect in the world for the professor that spoke. I may disagree with him, and I do agree to disagree, and we certainly, when I spoke to Mr. Lockwood, agreed to disagree on many points, but we also agreed to agree on that no matter where we were, that it's about making sure that this decommissioning is going to be done safely, properly, using every bit of information available. I would anticipate and expect, if this passes, that as the application moves forward, my expectations would be that in true Pickering style, that our communities will continue and will be part of that process to be able to be that voice from the community perspective. Because whatever does happen isn't a reflection, because this is not a debate on who's nuclear, who's anti-nuclear, who's pro-nuclear, and I know that got caught up in it, but it isn't. As I said, this is a discussion on economics and the best way to move forward with decommissioning and to make sure that it's done right and expediently, as the motion says. I look forward for some discussion by members of council, and I also look forward to participation from the community. And I also look forward to some clarity from the province of Ontario and also the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission as they sort out the 12 months. The sad part is we'll debate it for 12 months and the 12 months will pass. So the amount of time that's going to be spent on December 31st, 2024 or December 31st, 2025, I want the focus to be, let's get started on the decommissioning process. We talked about it in 2015, and now it's time to start really moving forward on that process expediently as possible. And I will ask for a recorded vote. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Pickles?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to note that you have spoken on many occasions, and OPG spoke tonight about the contribution that OPG and Pickering Nuclear Station has made to this community and continues to make, and that's been over a long period of time. And I think we all appreciate that, noting that Councillor Brenner has already noted that some people can agree to disagree on things. But I think what we're looking at tonight is the difference between two paths that OPG has spoken to with respect to decommissioning, but it's also spoken to in the International Atomic Energy Agency decommissioning nuclear power plants. And that is immediate dismantling or deferred decommission and dismantling. So, you know, I think every plant comes to its end of life, and it's coming to its end of life, and we know we have to decommission it. I don't think sitting idle or delaying work to decommission it is what's best for this community and what's best for the province and what we're looking at. I don't think, and I think one of the last time frames that Mr. Lockwood mentioned was 2064. I just don't think 2064 is a timeline that people are looking at for the final decommissioning and dismantling of that plant. It's a long ways away. I believe it can be accomplished sooner. I realize that this plant has 8 units as opposed to some that have had 1. The CANDU plants, perhaps they're more complex. We certainly don't want to be reckless in the dismantling and decommissioning of the plants, but I just don't think that deferral or sitting idle when we could be undertaking work on these plants for sitting idle for decades and taking to 2064 is the best route. I don't think deferral is the best route. I think immediate dismantling is appropriate. Of course, that doesn't mean the wrecking ball is coming. As we've heard, fuel has to be taken out. Plants have to sit for a while. But 2064, Mr. Mayor and other members of council, just does not seem appropriate. I think we can do better. The motion reads as expeditiously as possible. I think that's what we should aim for. I think that's what we should all work towards. And I hope it's done before my 104th birthday, which would be 2064. I'll be supporting the motion, and I believe we can all work together on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cumming?
Thank you, Worship. I'll be brief. I think there's a number of people that were hoping there was a wrecking ball in our near future. Like Councillor Pickles, I look at some of the dates that were bounded around there, and I've just done some rough calculation. I'll be 117, and hopefully it happens before that. I think one of the things that, having lived in Pickering, I've lived here for over 40 years, and I think I've never felt unsafe because of the nuclear power station. I can't say that I've always loved the fact that it was here, but I've never felt unsafe. And when I hear references to some other places where they're decommissioning them faster, I wonder, is there potentially a price to be paid there? I like the emphasis to be on safety. I like the emphasis to be on us having the financial commitment to see that decommissioning done properly. I don't like the idea of it being rushed. I certainly hope it's more expeditious than some of the other dates. Goodness, I'll have grey hair by then. But I think this is the right move. I think moving as expeditiously we can is exactly what is called for, and I'll be supporting the vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Recorded vote.
Councillor Brenner's asked for the recorded vote. Just before I call the vote, I will be supporting the motion, but I think it's very important to understand context. I take some exception to references to a deferred decommissioning. Very specifically, my question to Mr. Lockwood. This is not deferred decommissioning. This is decommissioning in the context of the International Atomic Energy Agency's guideline, which says that you have to take into account all of the factors affecting the site itself, including the removal of the spent fuel that is currently stored on site. So let's not use words like deferral. It's not deferral. What it is a safe and reasoned approach to the decommissioning and dismantling of the site. And I also take exception to the comment, the phrase sitting idle, because in my experience, in all the years that I've been working with OPG, as other members of this council have, I've never known OPG to sit idle. I think they've always been actively engaged in the safe operation of the plant and in the community as a whole, and I thank them for that. Recorded vote requested by Councillor Brenner.
Councillor Brenner.
Yes.
Councillor Butt.
Yes.
Councillor Cumming.
Yes.
Councillor McLean.
Yes.
Councillor Pickles.
Yes.
Councillor Ash.
Yes.
Mayor Ryan.
Yes.
Your worship, that vote carries unanimous.
Thank you. Takes us to item 9.3, the urbanization of Altona Road and from Strauss Lane to Finch Avenue, moved by Councillor Pickles, seconded by Councillor Butt. Whereas Altona Road, Regional Road 27, was urbanized with curbs, sidewalks.
Motion to dispense.
Motion to dispense by Councillor Pickles, seconded by Councillor Brenner. On the motion to dispense, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Councillor Pickles, I'm sure you're going to want to speak to this, but it's to ask the region of Durham to move forward or expedite the
one that's sitting
improvements on Altona Road. Councillor Pickles?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My council colleagues would be familiar with this area of Pickering. It's at Finch and Altona. And if you recall, Altona was urbanized to just north of Stroud's probably a decade ago now. But it was not urbanized all the way up to Finch. Since then, we've had a lot of growth, a lot of residential families move in up in that area. The intersection of Pine Grove and Altona has seen a lot of development, including some commercial development. And so any of these residents who are in the new neighborhood, and there's quite a few as the numbers note here, do not have an urbanized route, sidewalks, to go east on Finch or to go south on Altona. Presently, the urbanization of Altona is not in the foreseeable budget forecast at the region, and I'm just asking that this council take a position to try to expedite that a bit by having it considered in the 5-year capital plan, specifically the urbanization of Altona from just north of Stroud's to Finch, urbanized with sidewalks, so that the families in the area, the pedestrians and bikers in the area, have an urbanized and sidewalk route to get to schools, to get to the commercial area, to get those links back to the rest of the municipality that they wouldn't have anytime soon otherwise. So just asking them to take another look at that at the region and expedite that, get it into their capital budget, not necessarily asking for it this year or next, but to get it into the program so that it comes forward sooner as opposed to later.
Further discussion? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That moves us to bylaws.
Second.
Bylaws moved by Councillor Ash, seconded by Councillor Brenner. This would be bylaws 77, 33, 34, and 35. Items to be pulled. Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have a confidential matter to deal with. Prior to the regular council meeting, an in-camera session was held at 6:30 p.m. in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Act and Procedure Bylaw 7665/18 to consider a matter before the Local Planning and Appeal Tribunal and to receive advice subject to solicitor-client privilege. Recommendation is the Director of City Development and CBO Confidential Report PLN 0220 Local Planning Appeal Tribunal Draft Plan of Subdivision SP 2017-05, Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application A10/17, CPCII Management Inc., Block 54, Plan 40M 1498, 1520 Notion Road. Moved by Councillor Cumming, seconded by Councillor Pickles. Discussion? Being none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Any other business? Councillor McLean.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Quite a few of us received emails about some changes of the school system at Maple Ridge and Von Willard. And we all realize that the school board looks after operations there. But sometimes their changes affect our residents and our traffic and our parking. And we notify them prior to any development where we get comments from them. Do they not notify us about changes that are going to affect traffic in our area, Mr. Prevalo?
Councillor McLean, I must say in this particular case, I don't recall hearing from the school board, but I will certainly follow up.
Well,
it's not normal practice.
It's not normal practice for them to notify us of studies that are going to be taking place that are going to change the makeup of schools and neighborhoods and create extra traffic?
That's correct. It is not normal practice, but I will follow up.
I would hope you would follow up and maybe get us put on the notification list. So when they're doing a study such as what they're doing at Maple Ridge and Von Willard, it'd be nice for the local councillors to be aware of it, to hear from the school board as opposed to from countless residents, and we actually know nothing about it. But I know it's the school board's prerogative, and I know they do their due diligence, but I think it's also important for us to have a say in it or a comment on it at least, because we all know what's happening around schools now with the parking and the traffic as it is. So thank you very much for taking that into consideration. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Pickles?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor McLean and I, as other members of council have mentioned, sidewalks along Kingston Road many times over this term and previous terms. I will be having, I'll give notice of a motion to come forward at the next meeting with respect to sidewalks along Kingston Road, and I'll be working with Councillor McLean on that.
Further other business? Being none, confirming bylaw? Moved by Councillor McLean, seconded by Councillor Brenner. All in favor? That's carried. Councillor asked for adjournment. Councillor Cumming? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
How to, have communication built in a workplace. What we're seeing is a huge popularity and interest in people taking American Sign Language classes.
Excellent.
I've been at the Canadian Hearing Society in the Durham office since 2008, and I can really tell you, like, I've saw a huge growth in the number of classes that we're running, the interest. And it comes also from employers that are bringing staff, that's their staff that want to communicate better with their new colleagues.
Excellent.
So
that really is encouraging.
Yeah, it's great, and it really it helps with team building. In my program, when we can help with the onboarding and orientation of a new employee and help break the ice, everybody gets to know one another. All those questions can get thrown out on the table about how are we going to communicate. We often hear the employer's concerns about safety, about communication. How is this going to work? And with information and that firsthand experience, they realize that it's, often they're already doing things that can be enhanced. It just needs to be pointed out. So
that is excellent, Darren.
So there's lots of resources. One of the, I guess, couple of really specific things that are good to point out in the website. There are actual videos that the employers can watch to get some firsthand experience of somebody that was working, a newly hired individual. There's scenarios, so case studies and samples of successful integration of deaf and hard of hearing employees into the workplace. There's an infographic section that has, it shows kind of the different things to be thinking about in your workplace that are communication areas, right? So lighting, good lighting, maintaining or controlling background noise, having visual alerts. This device here is something I can just quickly show. We're all using smartphones now.
That's right.
You could have the option of having a smartphone put on this, or it can be plugged into a landline, or this button can be placed outside of the office door to alert, and it'll light up. It'll also it helps with alerting. It helps them to know a phone call's coming in or a text has come in.
Right.
This is one of the examples of an inline amplifier. So you're just taking your existing landline phone or business phone, and it just connects into it, and it provides extra tone and volume.
Which is significant.
Yep. And also this is what we call an FM or personal amplification system. If somebody's doing training and there's a trainer can wear the transmitter,
Right.
and the hard of hearing employee can use the receiver.
I see the receiver there for them, yeah.
Tons of things. There's lots of stuff going on with Bluetooth technology. People that have hearing aids now.
Well, that's
are-
got to be huge, the Bluetooth side.
Yeah, there's so many ways now that you can integrate that into workplace scenarios. So the bottom line is we are there to help, and we want to be part of it. We want people to not be overwhelmed with the situation and just realize that they're on the cusp of a great opportunity to get some great employees.
I mean, the fact is they do have great employees, and I also highly encourage employers, in fact, even individuals, to go to the site, actually view some of the videos that Darren has mentioned. You'd be amazed, really, how much you'll learn from this site and from the various videos in the presentation. The fact is that disabled people, including people who are deaf, make outstanding employees. They appreciate their jobs. They hardly ever miss work because they appreciate they have a job. It encourages actually other workers to step up and feel like they're part of the team, and that if anything happens to them, the employer is going to be fair with them also. There's so many benefits. Well, Darren, I want to thank you for coming. We've run out of time, unfortunately, because this has been fascinating. But still, remember, people with disabilities, forget the disability. For goodness sake, look at the ability of the person. You have things that need to be done, and they can do it for you. Don't tell me you can't find a person with the ability if you don't look at people with disabilities, because they're out there and they can help you. They'll make great employees. So until next time, I'm Don Reese saying good night, and see you next time on Pathways to Success.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Welcome to Forever, man. This is forever. And there will be no surrender. Know that this right here forever. No surrender. It's forever.
Hello, I'm Liz Dowdswell, Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. In 2008, carbon monoxide, a deadly invisible gas, killed an entire family in our province. That tragedy led to a new law requiring homes with potential CO sources to have alarms. John Gignac's family members passed away that day, and he shares his story to save others.
Please make sure you have working CO alarms in your home. Protect your family today.
I'm not special. Cancer happens to people all the time. I take 1 mile at a time, 26 miles a day. I want to set an example that'll never be forgotten. Sometimes, it feels endless. But the pain I feel is nothing. I've seen little kids in so much pain. Somewhere, the hurting must stop.
Terry Fox ran more than halfway across Canada to raise money for cancer research. Every year, millions of people around the world continue the marathon of hope in his name.
This is Rogers TV, Durham Region. The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Securing your recycling in a few steps is simple, like bundling your cardboard separately. These These bundles can act as a lid for your blue box or placing heavier items such as magazines on top of papers with no material above the rim.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Talk Politics. I'm Deborah Hutchison. Our guest this week is Pickering Councillor Kevin Ash. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the show. Good to have you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So much going on in Pickering, both at the local level, and then you are a regional councillor as well at the regional level, and you are newly re-elected chair of the Police Services Board.
That's right.
Congratulations on that. So we've got lots to talk about today. Let's start with the Pickering nuclear plant and that pesky false alert.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get the original false alert. I got the all's clear that everything was good.
Yeah.
Did you get both?
Well, I didn't because I was out of town. I was out of the region where the notification would have been, but I learned about it because of my stepdaughter called us.
Yeah.
But I knew within 5 minutes that it was a false alarm because our fire chief had sent out a note.
Right.
So I didn't have the angst that a lot of people did because they read this and it wasn't for some time, like almost 2 hours, till they got the full clear, all clear text messaging out again. So they're investigating why it happened. I'm told that that testing system happens almost 3 times a day.
Right.
So it's just something went wrong. So we're
I read that it was human error along the line.
I think that's entirely what it was. Because like I said, this particular test happens three times a day, and it went live when it shouldn't have gone live. So, I mean, the minister of the Solicitor General, Sylvia Jones, has indicated there's going to be a full investigation. The mayor's called for that, and we're anxious to do that. At no time was there any public safety issues. It wasn't OPG's fault. They're a good community partner. Their safety record remains intact. So it was a very unfortunate development. But you know what? There's some silver lining to it. People have now ordered their iodine pills.
Yes.
My wife told me where ours are. So
that's just it. I have some in the house, and then afterwards I'm thinking, oh, sugar, where did I put them?
Exactly. So,
right?
so there's some good that happens from this. It's about emergency awareness, about the pills. There's been lots of people ordering them, and we've had a discussion. So hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it. And this, the other thing it showed to us that the system worked.
It works.
But a false alarm should have never have happened without, we do have drills that people know about. So it certainly woke people up, and it was unfortunate, and hopefully we can turn the page and move on.
When will you get any information on that investigation?
Well,
because I'm thinking, you know what? Yes, it happened. The system worked. This is good that the system worked. My question is, why did it take 2 hours before the all clear was given if you knew within minutes that it was A-okay?
Well, those are some of the exact things that we want to know is how it happened, what are the safeguards so it doesn't happen again, why did it take 2 hours, and hopefully it won't take a long period of time. There's all kinds of layers of safety, so hopefully we can get to the bottom of it sooner rather than later.
The provincial government announcing that they were going to extend its opening for, I guess, another year recently.
Yeah, the original plan was to shut down Pickering Nuclear in 2024. The government has announced that the time frame remains similar. The shutdown is going to begin in 2024, but it's going to take, they can't shut down all 6 reactors all at once.
Right.
So the plan is to have a staged shutdown so that the new plan is to have it decommissioned in 2025.
But then it will take a long time before everything cools.
Yes,
right?
It'll take several years for the rods to be taken out, and then the rods go into what's effectively a big swimming pool for cooling down, and they sit there for many, many years, 6, 7, 8 years. So that's part of the discussion we're having about how do we access that land in a period shorter than 30 years is what OPG's plan is right now. So we'd like to repurpose or reclaim that land sooner than that.
What will it mean for jobs in Pickering? This has been such a huge employer in Pickering for so many years.
Yeah.
I mean, there will still be employees there for quite a while.
Yeah,
but,
there'll be
but
employees.
Overall,
there will be
where will they be
employees
going?
there. The plant will still be operating in its decommissioning stage for many years. We have another nuclear station just down the road, so hopefully there will be some redeployment. Ontario Hydro, OPG is moving their head office to Durham as well, so there might be some opportunities there. Part of the decommissioning, we're asking, well, is the government to set up a center of excellence. So this is the first CANDU reactor to be decommissioned. So we'd like to be for it to be a center of excellence and to learn from this. So hopefully they have been a great community partner. They've been a large employer of the city and the region for a long period of time. And that will continue, some in Pickering, certainly more so in Darlington. And we hopefully, most of the employees will still have a job.
Let's hope so. So let's move to your work with the Police Services Board. Sure. Recently had a meeting, and once again, elected chair.
Yes.
Re-elected chair. Crime's up. Yes. In our fair cities. Your reaction?
Well, it's a troubling. We had seven homicides in 2019, which is one or two more than our average the last couple of years. The year before, I think we had 12, but the average is 5 or 6. So that's obviously a big commitment of time in regards to solving serious crime. But there's been other crimes that are impacting our community to a greater extent. The Chief of Police is coming to Regional Council on the 29th to make a presentation about his annual update, and crime stats is one of them, but also to ask Regional Council for 20 more officers. So hopefully, my colleagues on council would be supportive of that measure, because as we go and you talk to politicians, safety and community safety is a big part of it, and I think having more officers is a response to that. The community is growing. We have a new casino starting, which I'm sure we'll talk about shortly, but we have to be vigilant in regards to the challenges that we're having in regards to crime. And when you knock on doors, that's the two big things people talk about is taxes and their sense of personal safety, and they say, I don't want to be like Scarborough, for instance. And, we're becoming more urbanized, and we're getting to have more Toronto-like problems in regards to, petty crimes, but also more serious crimes with organized crime, gangs, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, it's a concern of mine. Hopefully we resource the police service. The budget will go through that process. It's $220 million we pay annually to resource our police here in Durham, so it's a significant commitment by taxpayers.
Do you think your colleagues on Regional Council will be willing to pay for those extra officers and say, that's good, give them the thumbs up?
I believe they will. Last year they did allow 25 new positions, 20 which were frontline. We've, in this year's budget, there's no new officers because we wanted to meet the guideline, but we're putting forth a business case to again resource us for 20 more frontline officers. And I think there's general consensus at council about the need for it, and I'm hopeful there will be a positive feedback and affirmation to that request.
And speaking of the chief, there has been a lot made in the media about dissatisfaction among the ranks, and that there is an administrator that has been brought in while an investigation has been ongoing.
That's true. That happened last May, and the chief still runs the service. He's there every day. I saw him this morning. So he is still in charge of the operation of our police service. The administrator has a specific oversight in regards to discipline and in regards to hiring.
And promotions
and
too,
promotions,
correct?
And promotions. And that's because that's the nature of the investigation, of what the allegations were. So the chief still runs things, still make those decisions, but for those particular things, the administrator has to sign off on them.
When can we expect a conclusion?
Well, there's two ways there will be a conclusion. One, there'll be the conclusion of the investigation, and the determination or their findings will be shared with the provincial government as well as the board. Or secondly, the service and the Police Services Board was in court as recently as Friday, challenging the directive of the government, or the order of the government to have the administrator in. And the judges, the three judges, have reserved decisions. So it's hard to suggest when a judge makes a decision, but it's sometimes a month, it's sometimes 3 months, it's sometimes 6 months. So the investigation is ongoing. We're supportive of it, a timely investigation and a timely decision. We just didn't agree with the government's view that it was an emergency situation where the administrator was required.
And we've been paying for that administrator.
Yes, we challenged that ruling, and the government has changed the order so that a different taxpayer is paying for it. The provincial government's paying
Still
for it.
taxpayers are paying
That's
for
right,
it,
just
but
not the local taxpayer.
not the local taxpayer. Okay, I'm going to stop you there because we've got to go to a break.
Okay.
So much more to talk about. Thanks for coming in. Stay with us. More to come on Talk Politics after the break.
Securing your recycling in a few steps is simple, like crushing your cans and bottles down in your container's blue box and your box board down in your papers box. This saves a lot of space and reduces the possibility of material blowing out of your blue box on windy days.
Go for a ride.
Awesome!
You're going to step up.
Got a hankering for more Cinema Scene? Then you'll want to watch Cinema Scene in review. It's just the reviews. Know before you go. To the movies, that is. That's Cinema Scene in review, only on Rogers TV.
Our guest this week on Talk Politics is Pickering Councillor Kevin Ash. Now, just briefly before we move on from the Police Services Board, Pro Action Cops and Kids has a program that's been a great success. Explain what that is.
It's a charity that the police board sponsors to the tune of about $10,000 a year, but it's police driven, so that police officers apply to this particular board of directors, which are independent from the police service, and they provide funding for all kinds of great programs. And at our board meeting, we heard presentations from two. One is an officer who does baking with kids once a week, and it's really designed to engage at-risk youth, and the police officers apply for the funding and get the money. The Police Services Board's about $10,000 of it. They raise about $90,000 independent of it.
Wow.
Pickering was the second chapter. Durham was the second chapter, and now Halton and York have opened up the third and fourth chapter. So it's remarkably successful. One of the first people involved was Nancy Shaw. She was the founding chairman of it, and you know, we hear bad things about youth a lot. I'm fortunate enough that I go to a lot of events where I see great young people with success. I'm at awards events and all the like. And I think what the difference is it's officer-driven for at-risk youth. And I think having them involved in baking or sports or community service, one of the officers talked about having the people that have gone through the program come back and get their 40 hours of community work through this program. So it's been a remarkable success, and we're delighted to continue to support it.
Okay. Pickering Casino update.
Yeah.
Durham Live.
We're ready. We're getting very close. I'm not sure if your viewers have gone by it, but it's a fairly impressive facility. There's two shafts that are the outline of the hotel that's being built with it as well. The opening date looks like sometime in March. I'm told about $50 million worth of machines are being delivered there now.
Incredible.
And we're excited about it. There was a job fair as recently as this week as well. And I think we're ready to go. It's going to be, it's going to put certainly Durham on the map. And it's going to give us a much needed revenue for infrastructure renewal in Pickering, and it's going to have lots of job opportunities for young to old. I was at one of the job fairs, and it was remarkable the difference. Every color of skin and every age, from young people looking for jobs to people looking at second careers to GM workers who had just heard about their ending of their work life in that particular industry. So we're excited about it, and it's an exciting project. And the casino and the hotel's only really stage one.
Right.
There's two other hotels. There's a performing arts center. There's going to be shopping, hopefully a water park, amphitheater, and film studios in phase two. So Durham Live is, people thought it was a pipe dream. We're getting close.
Right.
It's going to be great.
Now, Ajax had they had concerns about traffic and the impact on traffic there on Church. Do you foresee that being an issue?
I think it's a legitimate concern. You know, we're looking at between 18 and 22,000 people a day going to that facility. The reality is it's going to be directed more so south off to Bailey, off either Westney or at Brock Road. We're in the process of building a new overpass at Notion Road.
Right.
So, and we're still looking at having another exit off the 401 at some juncture. So it's legitimate. As recently as yesterday, police, fire, transit were in the same room talking about traffic management. So it's a concern, and we're dealing with it. One of the things that was required of the casino people was to get more capacity in the turning lanes at Westney and at Brock to make sure that traffic flows. and hopefully that'll keep it away from the historic village of Pickering Village. But having said that, I mean, having all those people means they'll be looking to dine and shop, and some of the people will be very excited about having a new customer base, that's for sure.
Okay. Let's move on to Seton and an update there. We have been talking about Seton and the community of Seton and Pickering for so long.
Yeah, the first residents have moved in the Mattamy development. Seton is going to be, when it's fully built out, about 70,000 people. And we made a deal with the province that for every 2 people, we get 1 job. So that means 35,000 jobs in central to North Pickering. So it's very exciting. We've cut or broken the ground for Kubota. We're looking at Bahar Group as well as some other major manufacturers to look at relocating their head office along the innovation corridor. So it's an exciting time, and it's a different type of community. So we want it to be transit supported. And we're excited about having 70,000 new residents. Pickering only has 100,000 now, so it's going to be a dramatic increase in terms of our size. And when I hear people, when I was knocking on doors and talking to people, most people in Durham, or a very large number, get on the GO train and head to the city. So it's going to be exciting to have perhaps a reverse commute and have people not only live and play in Pickering, but also now to work in Pickering.
I think that's everybody's dream, isn't it?
Yeah.
To work close to where you live.
Absolutely.
Where are we on this Bloomin' Airport?
Well, there was a little thing last year called the election that kind of, I think, sidelined the decision making, but the KPMG study has been confirmed that it's sitting on the minister's desk, the Minister of Transportation. The needs analysis. So now that the election's behind us, I'm hopeful that we can get the release of that report. There's a number of companies that said they'd love to be private sector partners and be builders of that airport. And I've long supported that an airport, if there's a business case to support it. I think there will be a business case to support it. But all governments of all different levels of parties have not been great stewards of that land. So I think we need a decision to either move forward or to not move forward and return that land to owners or to a different use. And I'm hopeful that 2020 will be the year that we finally
get an answer or a resolution.
I mean, it happened, believe it or not, back when my dad was mayor in 1972 or 4, when the expropriation happened. So that's how long it's been. I was 12 years old. So.
And there is a group of residents now moved into a next generation of those residents who will never support it.
Landover Landings are very passionate people opposed to the airport, and I understand. They felt like the government did them wrong, and I don't disagree about that determination. But an airport doesn't have to necessarily be a negative thing anymore. We talk about jobs, we talk about a tax base, we talk about the new reality of agriculture. Doesn't have to be in fields. It can be vertical greenhouses, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there can be a mix of those two ideals.
Okay, we're rapidly running out of time. So I also want to talk about the new mental health unit that opened up at Ajax Pickering.
Yes.
Very close to your heart.
Yeah. I lost my stepson to suicide April 1st, 2018. And my wife and I had a fundraiser last year to commemorate what would have been his 29th birthday, and we raised $25,000 in that event. Community leaders, political leaders, business leaders all joined us for that event, and we donated it to mental health beds at Ajax Pickering. And last Friday they actually had the official opening, and I think Monday of this week they had the first patients come in. So Karen and I were delighted to make that money available to them to buy a particular piece of equipment which is used to help people with mental health challenges deal with their environment, and it was a light sound type of equipment. It's hard to explain, but they tell us it's very important for the healing process. We're coming up to Bell Let's Talk about mental health, and it's important that we have a dialogue about mental health. It affects a lot of people. 10,000 Canadians don't go to work every week because they're unwell in their mental health. And what I'd say to people, mental health doesn't know if you're black or white, rich or poor, male or female, young or old. It affects us all.
And it shouldn't just be one day that we talk about it or
That's
feel
right.
comfortable talking about it.
That's right. We really
Right.
do have to end the stigma attached to it. And as I say to people, it's okay to be not okay.
Definitely. Okay, we have less than a minute, but I want to ask you this quick question, sir. What was it like growing up with a man like George Ashe, mayor of the then town of Pickering?
Well, I've known...
Who then went on to do more in politics, right?
I've ever since I was born in 1962, and my dad was already a school trustee in Ottawa, and we moved to Pickering in 1967, so I've been here for a long time. You know what? I think it instilled to me a sense of community, a sense of public service, and I'm honored to be George Ashe's son, to be honest. That's my middle name, so I'm glad he's recognized in our community. We have the library
Right.
named after him as well. He's been gone for 5.5 years now, but his legacy lives on.
Okay. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining us.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for joining us. Until next time, I'm Deborah Hutchison. Thanks for watching.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
That cup of coffee in the morning may seem like the only choice, but is it really? Caffeine found in the coffee bean does block the drowsy-causing effect of chemicals, but that can only last for so long before we crash. The honey and tea way of getting out of bed is reaching for a cup of superfood matcha green tea. Unlike most teas, matcha powder uses the whole leaf and contains the plant energy of chlorophyll. 1 cup of matcha is like drinking 10 cups of regular green tea. Whisk in half a teaspoon until the tea dissolves. Within 10 minutes, matcha can regulate blood sugar, preventing glycemic slumps. Superfood matcha green tea, your new, most treasured energy booster.
Sometimes it's hard to say goodbye to an old friend. But when you're saying farewell to your vehicle, Kidney Car makes it fast and easy. Just call or visit our website. We'll take any vehicle in any condition and give you a tax receipt for a minimum of $300. No headaches and no towing charges. It's the one-stop solution for getting rid of your unwanted vehicle in just a few short minutes. When your vehicles reach the end of the road, call us toll-free or visit kidneycar.ca.
This is Rogers TV, Durham Region. The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
We're back, everyone. Yay! Actually, we haven't been away for that long because in season 5 we ended up doing 10 episodes instead of the regular 8. So we took a month off. I went with some friends to a cottage in North Kawartha. Hi, North Kawartha. I love you. You're a fantastic area. And I hear Kat and Boyd had a very busy summer, and we're back and ready to roll. Welcome, everyone. Give yourself a big round of applause. Yeah. Hope you're all doing fantastic and you had a grand summer as well. We are coming to you from Berkeley Bicycle Club in Toronto, where we're almost ready to wrap up our residency here. We're moving to a really iconic community space, Buddies in Bad Times Theater. You all know it. For those who don't know this space, it is one of the most well-known and respected theater spaces in really the whole world for the queer community. So I'll tell you more about Buddies when we get there. But before we leave, I want to hugely thank Berkeley Bicycle Club, who's been our home for the last couple of years. They've been so kind to us, so supportive, so incredible. And let's give them some love. Yeah. And actually, we got Jonathan here. Stand up, Jonathan, and give us a little final bow.
Cheers.
Thank you for all your help. Thank you. Make sure to support them, everyone. If you ever need a venue for your event, they are fabulous people. And a lot of our audience and guests have took the tour of this stunning mansion. So, and everybody really loves it. Speaking of support, when just a general reminder, when we see somebody or a business advertising, supporting us, donating space, hosting our events, we should support them back. It's the best way that we can show our appreciation for those who help us. This is the premiere episode of season 6. Yay! And I can't believe we made it this far, but thank you for the love. You really helped. Our fans have helped keep us going. We've got a lot of amazing plans for expansions, a new home, some hot off the chart guests for this season. So keep hanging with us because we're gonna take you into some very new, fantastic places. Kat Grant is on the set of feature film Salty Watermelons. Sounds yummy. And she's going to be chatting with the cast there. And our own Boyd Kodak will be visiting with amazing drag artist, Pretty Ricky. So it's going to be a great episode. But also, I'm very excited about this episode because something very special and very iconic is going to happen on this show. And I'll tell you more about that shortly. This is why it's going to be cool. We're going to be talking about The Great Imposters. And The Great Imposters is one of those legend drag troupes in our history, in our community. If you haven't heard of them, read about them, search online. We wouldn't have the drag that we have now in Canada if we didn't have those pioneers who led the way in a time when it was very, very hard to do what they've done back then. Just as exciting, I have our main guest is the one and only, a drag legend herself, Divine-esque. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
She's going to be telling us all about The Great Imposters, her life, her art, and her history, and a lot of amazing things. Welcome to the couch. I've been wanting to have you on here for a long time.
Well, I mean, 6 years, better late than never.
Let's begin with you giving us a bit of history rundown of The Great Imposters. What do you know about them?
What I know about The Great Imposters, first and foremost, is that my drag mother, Michelle DeBerry, was one of the founding members. And the troupe goes back to the 70s, and I venture to say, arguably, it is probably the oldest drag brand in Canada, if not probably one of the oldest drag brands in North America. And they were bringing cabaret and a little bit of Vegas and a little bit of body humor and some glamour and a lot of fun to the outlying regions, primarily of Ontario and Canada.
So not just in Toronto.
Oh, heavens no. Toronto was the last place the Great Imposters would play.
Okay.
The Great Imposters were interested in taking their art to the outlying areas where people wanted some kind of entertainment like that, but couldn't get into the city.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And courageous.
Courageous, yes. I would say they were inadvertent activists, if that makes sense. Inadvertent activists.
To do drag back then was activism.
Well, it was subversive.
Yeah.
It was subversive. It was colorful. It was, you know, eyebrow raising. And I mean, it was very different then than it is now. Actually, I kind of wish drag today still had that feel about it.
There's new people doing new exciting
Yes.
things. But yes, you led the way, and we are really appreciative for that.
Well, it was fun.
Let's talk about there's a new generation of the Great Imposters.
Yes.
That's what we were talking about.
What I'm trying to do with the Great Imposters new generation is because I was a Great Imposter.
Oh, you were part of it.
Oh, yes, of course I was. Yes, I was trained and groomed by Michelle after Michelle left the Great Imposters.
Okay.
And then I worked under Rusty Ryan, who was the other founder of the Great Imposters with Michelle DeBerry.
Okay.
So I worked under Rusty, Danny, Jackie, and Leslie O'Shea, and Fancy, and I learned about cabaret drag art from them. And it was a different kind of drag than is going around now. And I think it's time to try and maybe take a look back, because unless you take a look back, how can you possibly know where you're going to go?
We're going to do something a little unique and very special on TV. We're going to drag legend and royalty. The originator of the Great Imposters, Michelle DeBerry, is in the audience. And we're going to invite Michelle to come up and basically pass the torch, the baton, to the new generation.
Well, that would be nice. That's my mama.
That's your mom.
That's my mama.
So, Michelle, come join us.
Yes, kiss the ring.
Kiss the ring.
It's a holy relic.
Are you going to pass that on to Divine-esque?
May I give it to you?
Of course you may.
Okay. Can I get it off?
Oh. Can you get it off?
Thank
you. Here, let's find a finger for it.
Oh. Maybe that one?
That one. That works beautifully.
I guess my turn now to kiss that.
Is it in?
Here, I'll kiss the ring.
There you go, Antoine. Thank you, darling. Thank you, Mama.
Thank you both for showing us how community is and all generation and new generation together. So we're going to take a little break. We're going to check in with Kat Grant, and we're going to be right back. So don't go anywhere. All right.
Thank you, Mama.
Securing your recycling in a few steps is simple, like bundling your cardboard separately. These bundles can act as a lid for your blue box or placing heavier items such as magazines on top of papers with no material above the rim.
It was my daughter's birthday. She was blowing out the candles on our cake when we heard coming from the TV. So we stopped and listened, and it helped us get to safety. That's why when I think of my daughter's birthday, because now she gets to keep having them.
Hey everyone, it's Kat Grant here. I'm in Tweed at the Beach Hollow Resort with the cast of Salty Watermelons, the movie. They're going to introduce yourselves and then we'll tell you what the movie's about. Check it out.
Hi there, my name is Catherine Daupichette. I'm a francophone Montreal actor, and you can follow me on Cat is Out There for my following projects. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Krista Barzo. You can follow me on my website at kristabarzo.com and Instagram at Krista Barzo, and you can find out more about my latest short film project that was completely 100% crewed by women at DNA Movie on Instagram.
Hi, I'm Angela Vanderwall. You can find me on Instagram at Angela G. Vanderwall.
Hi, I'm Cassidy Siviero. I'm a sex-positive bisexual actor and screenwriter. My first screenplay, I'm in Love with All My Friends, was distributed by the Fearless app. It's an LGBTQ streaming app. Check it out. You can find me at facebook.com/CassSivy to follow me on my journey through this life.
Hi, I'm Nancy Lowe. I am the executive producer and actress at Salty Watermelons. You can find me on LinkedIn. I have a couple of children's shows I'd like to get out there, so anybody interested, let me know.
Hi, I'm Cindy Choi, producer, makeup artist, software engineer, knitter extraordinaire. You can follow me on Instagram at Cinderbug78.
Hey guys, I'm Ed Robinson. You can find me in downtown Toronto. Come to the TR Lounge, we'll hang out.
Hi guys, I'm Michael Juga and I'm an actor, and you can follow me on Instagram at Mikey Juga. Same thing with my Twitter.
What's up guys, Michael Mazurkovich, actor.michael on Instagram, Michael Mazurkovich on Facebook, very open to new friends on Facebook as well, and I keep things relatively fresh.
Hi, I'm Will Primrose, the mad genius and creator, writer, and producer of Salty Watermelons. I can be found at saltywatermelonsthemovie@gmail.com.
Kevin Jacob, man. Can be found at Act Like a Monster at Instagram and Kevin Jacob Monster on Facebook. Peace, man.
Hi guys, I'm Paul Arcos from Barrie, Ontario. You guys can find me on Facebook, and I'm play Jack Shellac, the meanest Canuga, the all-world nerd.
Hi, my name's Savon Masters Johnson, and you could find me on Instagram at SMJ Flames, and also my new one, Lucid Nexus, standing for Lucid Nexus Productions. And you can also find me on Facebook as well. I do camera and DOP, and I hope to see you soon someday.
So now I'm sitting with Angela, who is actually not just an actress in this, but is directing. So, Angela, please tell everybody what the movie's about.
Yes, Salty Watermelons is a screwball comedy. It's a quintessential Canadian story. It's set on an island in Nova Scotia that the world has totally forgotten. It's a story of the people that live there, their shenanigans, their quest for independence, understanding, love, magnificence, and the lengths that they'll go to achieve those things. So we think it's going to be a pretty funny movie.
Great. How long do you think it'll be before it comes out?
We are hoping to have it done for early spring.
2020.
2020. 2020 already.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it. It was fun taking part. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So you can find out more also at #SaltyWatermelonsTheMovie. All right, check it out. We'll see you soon.
Wow, we're back, everyone. Yay.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Hi, cheers.
That was something, okay?
Well, yeah, my mama is a legend and was a...
I love her.
I love Mama too. You know, Russell Aldred is my mama's boy name.
The real name.
Has been my father.
Yeah.
Michelle has been my mother, has given me home, has given me rides, has given me clothing, has given me money, has given me meals, has been a true parent.
You know what? And really a true fantastic person. I was watching recently some old footage of you performing at Club Kobe's.
Oh my
Which is a
gosh.
legend of a club back in our history.
Long
I'm
time
not going to say
ago.
how long ago. That don't age either of us. But you were doing the amazing Anne Murray.
Anne Murray, yes.
And brilliantly, I might add.
Thank you.
Over the years, who else have you done?
Well, Anne Murray was my closest look-alike. I also did Carol Channing. I did Charo. Yeah.
Wow.
And I did Ethel Merman. And I did some of Lily Tomlin's characters as well. Anything that was kind of light and uplifting and funny. But Anne, I always took very seriously. My impersonation of Anne, I always took very seriously. Because I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Anne Murray's music. I love her work. I love what she did for the Canadian music industry.
Yeah, she's a good person. Have you met Anne?
I've met Anne, yes.
Awesome.
She said, "Aren't you a bit big to be doing me?"
Funny. So now that begs the question: why did you get into drag?
I got into drag because I came to Toronto thinking I was going to be a musical theater star.
Okay, so you wanted to be an entertainer.
I wanted to be a musical theater star, but there was no musical theater. Everything was very dark and gloomy at that time. I mean, musical theater didn't hit Toronto until the late 80s and early 90s and all these big musical productions. So
you made your own journey.
I made my own. Well, I met Michelle. at the Homo Hop at U of T.
Wow.
And she walked in and I went, oh my God, I want to be her. And here I am. Well, I'm not her, but.
You are Brian Greenwood.
I am.
What makes your creation Divine-esque unique?
Divine-esque is inspired and informed by Divine.
Yeah.
But what makes it unique is that as a record producer and recording artist, I was able to address Divine's musical catalog, update it, give it a new musical sound, and readdress it. And I brought it out. And do you know, Antoine, so many of the young people thought that it was all new and original music they'd never heard before.
You're kidding.
You know, I bought it.
Go for it. Tell them that it is.
But no, I was always very careful to give credit to Divine and Bobby Orlando, who wrote the
I
music.
can see you being very respectful of
Yes,
those who did the work.
yes.
And other than Kobe's, you also performed in some of the most iconic spaces. Run them by us.
Well, I started at the Manatee, April the 18th, 1981. At 2 o'clock in the morning. So it was really the 19th. Also Katrina's, Colby's, Trax, Bar 1. I did really well at Chaps and Badlands. Occasionally I was at Boots. And then the culmination, I would say the culmination of my career was when I was working for Evening at Lacage Dinner Theatre, which was in the late 80s and early 90s. Yes. Now, back in the day, the late 80s and early 90s, the girls who worked at Lacage were like the RuPaul girls are today. We were the queens of the queens.
I know.
At that time, yes. And it certainly is a time I look back on with a lot of very fond memories and actually a lot of respect also for the people I worked with.
Beautiful. For anybody who's from the younger generation in our community, if you haven't heard of those clubs, look them up. They really are iconic in what got us to where we are today. Drag becomes a family. Is that accurate or not?
Well, I have to say that backstage with the Great Imposters, we were very much a family. Yeah. And backstage at Lacage also, we were very much a family.
Do you see this prevalent today as it was in the past?
No.
No?
No. I find there's a generation that's more concerned with the 5 seconds of fame you're going to get on Instagram.
Huh. Well, let's change that and make us our family again. So.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
I'm always about togetherness and family.
Oh, absolutely.
You're also known in the community for something other than your drag, and that's your bling. Is this your creation?
These are my earrings. Thank you very much. Crystal Countess is my high-end line, and then I have a stage line that's called Shady Queen.
Oh, cool. Yeah. All right.
Shady Queen.
Well, do you sell them online?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I have Facebook pages for both brands. Crystal Countess and Shady Queen have Facebook page.
Check them out, guys.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to take a little break. We're going to check in now with Boyd Kodak, who's going to be talking to Pretty Ricky, and we'll be back right after this. So don't leave us. Stay with us. Bye.
Securing your recycling in a few steps is simple, like crushing your cans and bottles down in your container's blue box and your box board down in your papers box. This saves a lot of space and reduces the possibility of material blowing out of your blue box on windy days.
Summer days, summer nights, lots of things to do, places to go, and people to see. If you're having a few drinks, be sure to plan ahead and get home safely. We don't want to pick you up. Drinking drivers risk injuries to themselves and others and take chances with their license, their jobs, and their future. Remember what's at stake and choose your ride, whether you're the driver, the passenger, or the party host. Thanks for supporting Sober Driving. I hope we never meet.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
Welcome to forever, man. This is forever. And there will be no surrender. Know that this right here forever. No surrender. It's forever.
Hi, Boyd Kodak here. This episode I have with me Pretty Ricky. Pretty Ricky goes by he and they and is the founder of East King Productions.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome. Tell us a little bit about East King Productions and the focus of...
East King Productions, I started about 2 years ago, and actually before that I had another company called Pretty Money Productions, which was run by myself and one of my best friends, Spencer Money. And then we decided to go separate ways, and I started East King Productions just to be able to provide a safer, inclusive space for drag kings and gender performers. Because after Zipper's cell block closed, there was absolutely no space for drag kings at all, really, to perform, and we just kind of like disappeared, and there wasn't really many kings around. There was like Maximum Capacity and Drag King Flair, and those guys that would do performances in like burlesque shows and stuff, but we never really had anything that was our own.
Your own show?
Yes.
So you created your own show, and now you
Yes.
have multiple?
Yeah, so my main monthly show is called Kings and Classics. We're going to be 3 years old in January. I also host and produce a trans and queer all ages open mic night out of Glad Day Bookshop. We have kids that come anywhere from like 7 up until late. Yeah, so we have it all the way from like youth to seniors that come to this open mic night, and everybody is just like there together and talking about their life or like their spoken word and their poetry. Some people sing, some people do comedy. Like, it's just the most amazing environment.
Embrace?
I do Embrace and Kings and Classics. I also collab with other producers here and there with other shows, but House of Kings is run by Zachy Lime and Alexander Brandy. Zachy Lime's in the audience right now. They also help produce King shows and provide space as well. So now the Kings are kind of taking over the scene again, and you can almost find a King and gender performer in like most shows and most venues now, because like it was mentioned earlier in the show, the newer generation is coming up and just fucking shit up with like non-binary. There's no such thing as like rules and limitations. You can come, you can be your weird self, you can do what you want and just perform and be you and who you want to be.
Where can we find you online so we can follow your show?
We have social media on Facebook. You can find us at East King Productions. Instagram is also East King Productions. You can find House of Kings at House of Kings on Facebook and Instagram as well. You can follow my personal page at Pretty Ricky. There we have all details and updates on shows. Buddies in Bad Times Theater. They have been our home for the last 3 years, so thanks to them again, providing amazing queer space all the time.
How did you pick your name?
My personal name, I've had the nickname Pretty Ricky since I was in high school. I didn't just give it to myself, believe it or not. I've had a bunch of different drag names. Actually, when I first started was at Zippers about 10 years ago, and my first name was Alex Belong. And then it was something a little inappropriate with also Alex, but I'm not going to say it out loud because it's embarrassing. And then I also went by the name Romeo and Juliet when I came out of retirement, because I retired from drag for about 5 years. And then I decided, you know what, like, I vibe with Pretty Ricky, so that's just going to be how I'm known. Like, most people call me Pretty Ricky either way. And
Nice.
East King Productions, I created East King because I'm from Scarborough and I'm a king.
So there you
So
go.
I'm from the east side of Toronto, you know? So that's how I got East King Productions.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Future plans that you should...
I mean, as of right now, I think that the community is doing pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing. I mean, you've really brought...
Yeah, so there's not really future plans for East King. I'm just going to continue doing Kings and Classics. I'm going to continue doing Embrace. Mostly, I'm just kind of here if younger folks need some help and want a little stepping stone into community, into the performance world. I'm just kind of here to give them their wings, I guess.
If you want to get into performing, contact Pretty Ricky, and he'll see if he can find a spot for you.
For sure.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are back! Yeah. Thank you. We're going to switch gears a bit now and talk about you and your life.
Wonderful.
Let's start with growing up. Tell us about family.
Southwestern Ontario.
Where?
Burford, the Lake Erie Plains, Tobacco Farm.
Tobacco Farm?
Tobacco Farm, yes. I was born and raised on a tobacco farm.
Family?
4 older sisters that I was born and raised with. A brother and sister that I found later in life when I was 46 years old.
Still close?
Close with all of them. I'm the youngest of the 5 in the birth family, so I had 4 older sisters and a single mother. So I was raised by a family of women, and I think that's where Divine-esque. I think that's where Divine-esque comes from. I've always viewed women as protectors, as mentors, as teachers, as strong. And when I'm like this, that's how I feel too. So this character inside me protects me.
That's wonderful. You have a partner in life, or is it?
I do. His name is James, and he's a workaholic, and he's working
not
tonight.
here.
He's not here with me, no. But no. Next question, please.
You don't live in Toronto these days. You moved somewhere. Where did you move?
Moved to
Why did you move?
Moved to Kitchener-Waterloo because Kitchener-Waterloo, yes, because it's a big city and it's the home of bratwurst and beer and great big sausages, right, Darren?
I can. Over the years, have you been involved in any other scenes or causes in the LGBT community other than drag?
Many. I think for every $5 tip I get on stage, I donate another 10 back to the community, really.
So you are into causes.
But I am into causes, yes.
We're going to wrap up with our quick questions. So
okay.
It's ready here.
Oh, are these rapid fire?
Yeah.
Oh, I better
so
sit
answer
back.
the first thing that comes to mind. Okay.
First thing.
Your favorite season of the year?
Fall.
Tiara or not tiara?
Big fucking crown.
What color do you most like to work with when you are making jewelry?
Fuchsia.
What color theme is your bedroom?
Earth tones.
Nice. A walk by the beach or TV binge watching?
The beach with Darren.
Nice. Favorite drag themed movie?
Favorite what?
Drag themed movie.
Oh, Priscilla.
Yeah. And you're throwing a dinner party for all of us, everyone here. What would you make us?
Lasagna and salad. And
lastly, last words to our community and to our viewers at home, whatever you want to say to us.
Well, it's a sensitive time right now. The Republicans are in power in the United States, and, you know, we have a guy that wears a tribble on his head as the president. And I think it's important to remember in Canada, remember the party that made us not be criminals, who legalized our sexual orientation. Remember the party that granted us marriage rights. Remember the party that gave us same-sex benefits. Remember the party that protects us. And remember that finances take care of themselves. It isn't always about the money. It's about how safely we can walk down the street.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Hot. Oh.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, join us for future filming. We have such a blast here. You can write us via Facebook, facebook.com. Join us on the couch. And tickets are free. We serve pizza. So hope to see you in the audience. Last year, we reminded you again and again that it's all about love. This year, let's remind ourselves that even when things don't seem perfect in our world, we got one another. As community and people in general, and our world has so much beauty, so let's never forget that. Stay beautiful, my friends. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And here's a wrap to premiere of season 6. Next week. Yeah.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
When I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is put on my ad.
Jaylen's been able to have the prosthetics and have the support that she needs because of the people who donate to the War Amps.
My aunt helps me to pick flowers.
She can do things on her own. She doesn't need someone else to do it for her.
I love all the pretty colors of flowers, but yellow's my favorite color.
What kind of topsy-turvy place is this?
So different. Pugsley, don't drink it all. This gentleman wants some too. My sister is gone. She picked up the boy. He's from Berkeley.
We're gonna go get her. We ride it on.
start talking.
You first. Hello, my name's Tallahassee.
You're watching Rogers TV. The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.